Hello and welcome to Simple NLP for this time. And I have today for you the VK dissociation prepared. This is the first video and introduction, which will follow by a demonstration with my friend Raphael. But first, what is the VK dissociation? It's an NLP process very early on developed by Richard Bandler and John Grinder based on the work of Milton Erickson, the hypnotic work, and the systemic work of Fritz Perls. And I have studied the approach at NLP University with Robert Dills, and there are various NLP institutes who have a bit different approaches, like sometimes also called the rewind technique, like you have a remote control and you go forward and backwards. But in all of that, like you see yourself and events in your life on a movie screen. And since you are here and the movie screen is there, the feeling is over there, kind of you are dissociated, you're separated. And the idea of this technique is to separate the feelings from the visuals. So you try to be entirely visual watching something. And therefore it is ideal to use this technique, apply this technique for stressful, painful, or traumatic memories. So we have this separation, seeing yourself on a movie screen, but even a further separation, like we're stepping a step back to see ourselves watching a movie of ourselves. So it's kind of imagining you're in a cinema and you step back, you're kind of in the projector room, or you have like a mental Photoshop. So seeing yourself watching a movie, you don't even see the movie. You really dissociate from stressful or traumatic experiences. And there you can play around. You can stop the movie. You can change the colors. You can make it less sharp, less three-dimensional. You move it back. In NLP, this is called submodalities, like modifying or changing submodalities, like the visual modalities. And then we can do a lot to modify the pictures, make them still pictures in a frame. That helps us to separate. And to separate, we experience traumatic memories less stressful. It become actually less of a trauma. Reason for that is that in the brain, there's a part called the amygdala where we get the sensory information, and it transforms sensory memory, like what we sense, to the hippocampus and the neurocortex, where it becomes reasoning, it fits into our memory, we can convert it. But if we discover a stressful, painful memory, like an accident, you may know that when, like, for example, you fall, seconds seem like hours. And what happens is there is so much stimulus in the amygdala that it's overwhelmed. And because of that, it cannot pass on the information to the hippocampus. And as of that, in the brain, the stress is stored there. It doesn't make sense, like it's a uninterpreted information. And that's why going back to these memories may create flashbacks and panic attacks and so on. And by separating visual kinesthetic, we can overcome the trauma. So how we work with that, like as I explained, the movie screen, we separate with that. We also use third person language. I would say about myself, oh, George is watching this movie and George in the movie is having this and that. He is very nervous here. So I speak about him, I speak about myself as him. And in doing that on purpose to separate myself. Then, yeah, changing the submodalities. And one very beneficial thing is to ask and acknowledge the positive intentions and the secondary gains. The positive intentions is that in fact through our wounds, through our challenging times, we develop gifts. So there is something, we become more resilient. When something like this happens again, we have been there before and therefore develop the capability. And the secondary gain is maybe there is something coming through to that. For example, now you're injured, you finally have time to pause. You finally get cared. You cared about the rest of the world, but you haven't received much care, and now it changes, and you're in a needy position where you receive care. So this is something to ask for when you are in this projection booth in the cinema. What is it that is a benefit of that? And you may grow. Like in sport psychology, it's often that athletes have the biggest growth when they're injured, and there's a big value in that. So I have a few slides prepared, and I'm sharing my Zoom screen. Here we go. To give you an overview about the VK dissociation process. Zoom is loading. And once it's on, I have a picture of my screen here. Yeah, basically this is the overview graphic of the process. I'm sitting here. This is in that case the first position. The first position is yourself in the cinema, like the world through your own eyes. You watch a movie about yourself. I'm using here my tablet to explain that. And basically, imagine that there's a big screen or movie screen, and then you have yourself sitting behind and looking over the shoulders. So you can see what effects does the movie has on George. And from here you bring in new resources. So for example, he developed resilience. Resilience is a positive intention, and also time to pause and reflect and rearrange his values. That's a resource to bring in. How is that expressed? It's expressed like this and like this. These are anchors. Like I make a simple movement with a certain memory, and I'm going back here into him, and I bring up this anchor, like, and I let it slowly transfer into the movie screen. And when I'm feeling safe and ready, I associate into the movie screen, into this, and receive it. And also I dissociate from, I can see what happens before that event. I come, I see that, I go through that, and I'm not getting stuck there. I have my visuals to pass beyond that. So I hope this was an explanation of this process, the VK dissociation, and look for the second video where I demonstrate this with my friend and fellow NLP practitioner Raphael. And if you're interested, join our Facebook practice group Simple NLP for this time. At the moment, we have weekly free online practice groups. Likewise, if you're interested in my coaching, visit my website, www.georgevanek.com. and find out more about my coaching. I wish you a lot of insights, explorations, and fun with your NLP practice, and look forward to hearing from you. All the best.